Guys, I hope everybody's doing okay. I've been playing Monster Hunter again for another few days, and I honestly felt compelled to make another video talking about the game. It's kind of like a follow-up video to the previous one I made, but to be brutally honest, this one's going to be like a little bit more negative, you know? I spoke about my opinions in the previous video. It's a hard series to judge because of the amount of games that are in the series and like the veterans that the games appeal to, and like I said, I started on Monster Hunter World. You know, I've not really been around a long time for the Monster Hunter games, but after playing for a few more days here, I've got like more opinions about how I feel about this game, and I gotta be brutally honest. They're not all positive. I think there's like a lot of negatives about this game as far as I'm concerned, and I hope people can keep themselves civil. If there's like people that are loving the game right now after like 20 hours that feel the need to type a bunch of stuff saying how wrong I am, that's completely fine, I guess. But I'm telling you now, as somebody who's played like 3 Monster Hunter games now, this is the third, I feel like this is the worst of the 3 of them. Now guys, I'm not saying the game's no fun. I've had like a tremendous amount of fun for the past few days just playing the game, because the gameplay is genuinely fun, like every single Monster Hunter game. And some people might just see that as reason enough to like buy the game, and that's what makes it good, is the gameplay, you know, and I completely understand. But there is other aspects about Wilds that I genuinely think are really bad, and I don't really think there's any defense for them, and I'll explain a few of them here that I didn't really explain in the previous video, because I do feel differently after the past few days of playing the game. I'm just going to talk about the story quickly again, even though we talked about it in the previous video, but I think this story deserves even more flack, because there's a part of me that really can't believe someone at Capcom got paid to make this story. And what's even harder to believe is that they expect people to sit through the Sony-like movie that they have created for like 10 hours and hope that people are going to enjoy that and want to play more Monster Hunter after it. Because here's my argument, is that I feel like a new person trying to get into the series will be completely put off the game playing this story, because you don't really have any control over what happens in the story. You go on your Chocobo, Sekaret, whatever you want to call it, and he automatically goes to the point on the map that they need to go to for the story to be completed. You fight a boss and then you move on, rinse, repeat, have a conversation, that's it. It's awful, and you're doing that for like 10 hours. I mean, I explained that I started skipping the cutscenes because it was getting unbearable, and I'm somebody who's played previous Monster Hunter games and I feel that way. So what do you think a new player is going to feel like with that? That's really all I've got to say on the situation. If Capcom are trying to get like new people involved in their games, I feel like that story is going to send them in the other direction because of how it's structured. It also makes the game feel very linear because you're putting people on a straight path. Now, I feel like that is 100% done on purpose, but it takes away from the vastness of the world that they have created here that they want people to see, because the story is actually not even letting them see it. So I feel like the story is bad for quite a few reasons, and that's a couple more that I had to put in there. I really hope Capcom don't force people to sit through another story like this for any other Monster Hunter game, because this is a serious negative to the game in my opinion. Now, another huge point I've got to make here is we just talked about the vastness of the world and how the story doesn't actually let you want to see it. Well, I personally think that Monster Hunter Wilds, for as big as the world is the worst exploration game out of all the games I've played. And I'll give you my reasons for that. As far as I'm concerned, the chicken ruins the game. It ruins everything about what makes Monster Hunter special out in the open world. You know, sure, you can turn off all the auto run features, right? But you can still turn auto run on with the touch of a button being up on the D-pad. So wherever you need to go, the chicken will just automatically take you there and take you there and take you there. And it's just so convenient to the point where you can't help but use it, because the game is 100% designed with that in mind. And when you fight a monster, when he goes running off, just hop on the chicken, it'll automatically take you to the monster. Everybody's following the same path line. It looks ridiculous. So like there's a numerous amount of things that I just think the chicken ruined the game. And I wonder why they done this for a game that's the biggest one they've made apparently. I mean, I've not even like fully explored the game because of the fact that the chicken's just so convenient and taking me everywhere I need to go. And guys, I really don't think it's a good argument telling people that it's an optional feature, because I think that's terrible. And it completely like ruins the point that people are trying to make about the game, that I don't think this should be in the next one. And I think this game would be better as a whole if it was removed, and it would actually force people to interact with the worlds that they have made, because half the fun of the previous games was getting lost and exploring the environments and hunting the actual monsters yourselves. And it's amazing how this chicken just completely ruins everything about that. One more thing I've really got to say is I guess there is a lot of talk about the game being easy, you know? And to some extent, I would agree to the point where I'm not really the guy that likes grinding for the sake of grinding. That's always been like my problem with Monster Hunter, is when it gets to the end game and there's no really any more monsters to hunt, there's no point in keeping on going if I can already like beat the last monster of the game with not even the perfect gear. My mindset kind of is like, well, I don't even need the perfect gear to actually beat the final boss of the game. There's nothing to work towards once the story's over, once we've beat all the final enemies of the game, so why do I really need these pair of gloves that give me something I don't really need to beat the final boss anyway? So I kind of do have that mindset with Monster Hunter as a whole. But usually it takes me quite a while to get to that period, but I've already reached that period in Monster Hunter Wilds, and I was beating the final bosses of the game, the tempered beasts, with really inefficient gear, like 2-3 days ago. Like, I kept playing for another 2 days for the sake of playing, but I already was able to beat the hardest monsters of the game with not even a final upgraded weapon or final upgraded armor whatsoever. And it left me feeling like there's even less to actually do in this game because we'd already beat the end game of the game that quickly. In actual fact, it doesn't really even feel like this game has an end game. So there's a lot about Monster Hunter Wilds that feels incomplete compared to the last games. Like, I remember in World, I was there playing for like a couple of weeks straight, actually, after the launch of the game, with still plenty to do. That's what it felt like. But in this game, after like 3 days, it feels like I'm completely done with it, unless I just want to farm every single major weapon in the game. But really, what is the point when we can already like beat, you know, the hardest monsters in the game? So I feel like the game actually doesn't have enough content in it either to keep people interested. And it baffles me like why this one has less than the previous games. I feel like I've explained myself pretty well for like how I feel about the game after a week solid of like playing it, and you know, it's not like I still don't enjoy it. The gameplay's still great, and it might boost a lot of people through the negative thoughts they maybe have creeping in the back of their mind about the game. Oh, the gameplay's still solid, you know, it's still Monster Hunter, whatever. But for me, I think it is the weakest of the three, even though the gameplay's still relatively good, even though the chicken ruins a bunch of it. But yeah, I've explained myself as well as I can, and there's a lot of people that have like kind of like talked to me about certain aspects of the game that I can't really comment on because I don't like play a lot of these aspects, but people have talked to me about the multiplayer no being improved in this game. And I can understand, you know, it does feel pretty finicky when it comes to the multiplayer. One thing I don't like about the multiplayer in this one is because there's numerous base camps around the world, it never really feels like the world has a lot of people in it because everybody's spread out amongst different base camps. So like whenever I'm in a base camp, it doesn't really feel like it's inhabited by a lot of people. So it kind of still feels like you're playing like a single player game, even though it is an online multiplayer game. And in the previous games, you know, it always kind of felt like you were there with other people because the base in like Monster Hunter World was a lot bigger. You've seen a lot of people running around. There was only one major base, and in this game that's not the case, and I think it affects the feeling of the world being alive, if that makes sense. Nonetheless, I'd love to hear what people think about what I've said here in this video. It's a follow-up to the last one a little bit, but yeah, I'm hoping some people find this video that kind of like know what I'm talking about and can understand and are not in a honeymoon phase with the game, because a lot of people get stuck in their honeymoon phases for a couple of weeks and then maybe a month later they're like, oh yeah, that part of the game wasn't too good or whatever. I kind of get over honeymoon phases fairly quick, and you know, unfortunately a bunch of like hardcore fans that are still in love with it usually find my vids, but I think everything I've said here is completely valid, and I'd love to hear what other people think.